Okay, Michelle. Episode 2, the second season of our holiday series. I somewhat feel like The Holiday was the perfect choice for our second release. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at us that we didn't do this last year because our first year of Film to Table was like very Nancy Meyers heavy. Like, not only did we review a few of her films, but I felt like we were always referencing her. But now that we're here, a year later, I'm glad that we saved it. Can I just say that I had like the best morning preparing for this? Last night we decided that we were going to record this today. So I had the choice whether I was going to stay up and watch it last night or get up this morning and watch it. And I thought, you know what? I have things on my to-do list, but I blew it off and I made myself a cup of coffee with peppermint mocha creamer in it. And I put on the Christmas tree and got out a blanket, and my cat Rory came in, sat with me, and just watched The Holiday and took notes. And like Jimmy walked by, and it was just like, this is my best life. Like, this is all I want out of life, is to be cozy, watch movies, and take notes about it.
This is your Roman Empire.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the the proper reference, but I'm making it anyway. And I've just made the executive decision that next year, when we record this season, I'm coming over for a week and we're recording all of these together and get some Bloody Holly out, and it's going to be great.
I feel like I should also come to California for a week. I mean, not to get really like meta out of the gate, but another reason why this movie is such a perfect pick for us is it's like oddly kind of accurate. I mean, if you're a new listener, first of all, welcome. We're very happy you're here with us. But for those who don't know, Laura lives out in California. I do not live in Surrey or in the UK, but I am obsessed with London, with England, with the culture out there. And I always say that, you know, one of these times I'm going to go to London and I'm not going to come back. So I think that I could very much live in Surrey or, you know, live in a little cottage town. We're bringing the energy of these two leads, not like completely, we're not cookie cutters of these characters, but close enough. And if you're not watching on our YouTube channel and you would like to, if you're listening to this in wherever you listen to podcasts, you can click in the link below and see what we're wearing, because I feel like if you looked at us right now, I mean, I very much like went out of my way to put on full winter garb, even though it's, I think, like 78 degrees here today in Florida. I have the AC blasting.
Watching you right now.
But Laura also has a very Iris aura happening right now.
I've been pushing Michelle for years to just suck it up and get a place in England or London. And I'm waiting for her to do it so that we need an international podcast recording studio. We need it.
We do.
It's a must. We need to dive into a UK audience.
And so when you said, I'm going to come out there and we're going to watch Christmas movies and we're going to record together next year, you meant somewhere in the UK, not here.
They built the cottage for this movie, so maybe we'll even just build a cottage. We'll find a little town 30 minutes outside of bustling London, and we'll build a cottage podcast recording studio.
Sounds perfect.
I can't wait.
Can you give me your history with this movie? Because I think mine is going to be different than what you're expecting.
So I have some, not maybe connections to the movies, but I have some good actor stories tied to this movie.
Oh, we haven't had this in a while.
You know, I was really hoping that someone from That Thing You Do would be in this movie, and I could just continue my search for all of the cast members. I don't have a first memory of watching this movie. Again, I think that I watch this every year. It's a comfort movie for me, as many of the films that we've reviewed on this podcast. when I was working in New York, I worked at an agency downtown, and I would have about a mile walk to my office from the PATH station. And it was always probably like one of my favorite times of day where I could just like put in a good podcast, put in some good music, and same on my walk back after work. And one day I was walking back to the train and I saw Edward Burns, who plays Cameron Diaz's sleazy ex in this movie.
Ooh.
And it wasn't too much of a surprise. He reminds me of just like a New Yorker stage actor. But someone stopped and asked him for directions, and I don't think that they knew he was an actor. And he was so sweet and was kind of like just letting them know where to go. But somehow I was walking in motion and I kind of like stopped and I was like, oh, I know that actor. He's in The Holiday, one of my favorite movies. Edward Burns. He seems to have like been with his wife for a really long time. Definitely not how he's portrayed in this movie. So it was kind of sweet to see that. It makes my heart fuzzy when I see actors out in New York because I just feel like they all live very cool lives, or so I like to think. But that's probably my only deeper connection to this movie. Michelle, you didn't really get into what your memories of this movie are.
Not many. I think that this morning, watching with Rory, was my third time seeing this movie. I'm realizing. But I think the reason that it hasn't felt that way is because the vibes are so familiar. I've like brought up Nancy Meyers now like 5 times already. And we've definitely mentioned this in her other episodes that we've covered, which have been Father of the Bride and The Parent Trap, and It's Complicated. But she just has this very, is it distinct or distinctive? Distinct
brand and feel, and
this overall like sense of coziness and loveliness that truly comes through in this movie. So if I'm mentally imagining my ranked list of favorite Christmas films, rewatching this today, I think just gave this like a giant jump to the, maybe not like number 1, but like in the top 3.
I feel like this is a very cozy alone movie. Getting a cup of something hot and wrapping yourself in a blanket and just enjoying it. I think it's great as a group, but I always find myself watching this movie alone.
I mean, I know my cat was there, but I was very much enjoying the alone time.
Okay, so should we get into the things that we love?
Yes.
Let's start with you, since this is hopped up on your list.
Oh.
I'm hoping that you have a laundry list of things.
I do, many things. We'll start broad. The interior design. I mean, this feels like even silly to have to say this, but I was trying to compare it to the other movies that we've covered on this podcast, because those are the ones that I know the best. And this is really up there. And I do this every time I watch The Parent Trap, where I go back and forth and I say, which one of these houses do I like better? Which one would I want to live in? I can never decide. And I found myself at that same crossroads again, because each of these homes has things that I love, but they're completely different. I'll throw it over to you. Do you have a strong-ish opinion about which of these houses is better?
I think the answer is both. I don't know. I think I gravitate towards the coziness more of the Rosewood Cottage, but man, it would be nice to entertain in that LA house and have some bougainvilleas and live next to Eli Wallach. I mean, you just can't beat it. So I think my answer is both. I want to live in LA 6 months out of the year. I want to travel 3 months out of the year, and I want to live in the Rosewood Cottage 3 months out of the year.
Perfect answer.
Well, what about you?
I think if I was being realistic about the house, if I could only have one of those houses to live in all of the time, as much as I love the UK, I think it would be the California house. There are a lot of modern elements to that house, which is not my style, but it was still like very cozy. It felt very, I don't know, Pottery Barn, but like Pottery Barn from like 2006. But it felt timeless. It didn't really feel dated. In, the girls' houses and also in Jude Law's house, there were just these giant movie posters up, which is definitely my vibe.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Our uncles have really great movie posters in their house, and they have a giant movie poster. I'm blanking out what it is, but they also have a horizontal one of All About Eve.
I think that they said that it came, like it was in a theater, like that's how big it is. And I forgot where they got it from, but
it's
amazing.
So satisfying to fill up that much wall space. But I agree. I was noticing that. I think we're talking so much about the Rosewood Cottage and Amanda's LA pad, but we get other houses that are so beautiful in the set designs, like Eli's house. I love Graham's house. The pan out of the last scene, also with the Christmas lights like intertwined in the ivy. Does that not make your heart just explode?
Yeah, I might want his house if that's in the running.
I think that's definitely most Domini's style if we had to choose one of them.
And there's a little bit more room to spread out. And I would want to keep the star tent because that would be such a fun place to just go and like recharge, like meditate, or just lay on the floor. I think we all need star tents in our houses.
We do need star tents. They shouldn't just be for tiny children. One of the first things I had written down was, can we normalize naming our homes?
Oh, we should name our homes.
The Rosewood Cottage, the Mill House. What would you name your house if you had to pick something? I'm really putting you on the spot here.
You are, and I'm terrible with like on the spot, and I'm terrible with names, even if we have like years to come up with them. It would have to be something with not the word beach, but like something with coastal, like because we're like a half-mile walk from the beach.
I think I have.
Oh, you've named it? Okay, tell me.
I just thought of it now. I don't know, because where your porched in area is. The lighting is so beautiful with some of the greenery and the palms that like lay shadows on the back. And I think I would, and because you just said coastal, I think the coastal palm.
The coastal palm. No, but I sound like a retirement home.
I mean, Michelle, if the boot fits. If the UGG boot fits. Oh. Okay, if you have to name mine, what would it be?
We'll go to like how Jack Black would, write a song about where you live. I picture whatever lo-fi music translates to is like what I think of your house. Just like very chill and very cool.
Oh, that's very nice.
But cozy.
Yeah.
Not chill as in cold, like chill as in like
I don't know.
Relaxing.
I think of like blue hues because Dom and I always say that Ocean Park, the neighborhood that we live in, it just has like this, I'm not even kidding. When you go east or west, the sky is different. It's kind of like this permanent blue. And then we sometimes get the fog that rolls over the ocean in the morning, but it has a different blue hue. So I'm thinking something blue. We have a painting above our fireplace that his uncle gifted us that's of our neighborhood. We got it before we moved here. The blue kitchen or something. I don't know.
The blue spot.
The blue spot. Yes. We got some jazziness. We have a big print of Chet Baker in the front room, and we have a lot of instruments spread out throughout our office. So yeah, maybe we are the blue spot. So what about the LA house? Are there certain if you had to pick one room that's your favorite? I have mine in mind already. But...
The living room with the giant doors behind it that are like that have the black doors. Love.
I gotta go with the movie room and all the DVDs, and when her and Jack Black are just sitting cozy on Christmas Eve watching a movie. I feel like if I had really big couches and just a giant TV with a bunch of DVDs, I would have friends over. I would try and have friends over like once a week, make some cocktails and some popcorn and pop in a movie once a week.
Do you know what I think is really special about having a room like that is, I mean, you guys get to go to the movies a lot, but when I go to the movies, it feels so special because it's one of the few times in my life where something is getting my full attention, that I'm not looking at my phone or I'm not being distracted by anything else. But I think having a room like that would kind of make you be more respectful of the experience. And I almost feel like I would leave my phone outside and just be like, no, I'm in the movie room right now.
I think that's part of the reason why we love going to the movies so much, is because it's 2 hours of your day that you can't look at your phone. I always appreciate it more when I see it in the movies. It makes me very happy.
Other things we like?
Characters, yeah. Like what are some aspects that really made you happy, or you just liked from a writing? Or
I really like the characters, but one of them really stood out to me and made me laugh so much, and I felt like it gave me a new appreciation for Cameron Diaz. It's not that like I've not liked her, but I think when I think of her, I think of her being in more like, like Something About Mary, and like more of these like movies that are like not my favorite type of movie. Even though the one that I probably know her best from is My Best Friend's Wedding. But I think that the reason that I was like laughing so hard at so many of her scenes was that I saw like our sisters in the way that she talked and reacted to a lot of things. And I know that she's way more like, I guess, like sure of herself and like more outgoing than any of us are. But the scene where she's being dropped off, the driver is dropping her off at the edge of the driveway and saying like the car can't go past this, and they're like, can you manage to like get the bags up yourself? And she's just like, no. Then it's like exactly me. And I was just cracking up because me and my husband travel a ton, and I always have so many bags with me, like in addition to I've got like my suitcase and my laptop and my purse and a food bag, and her struggling to get down the street was like my weekly experience, no matter where I'm going.
Sleeping with her BlackBerry and being like so neurotic about certain things. And I really feel like I connected with her when she shows up at the cottage and she just does not know what to do with herself. There's a scene where she's literally sitting at the table, like playing with her hair.
Oh, I love that scene.
And I always have this idea, like, I'm going to go on a solo trip somewhere and I'm going to rent an Airbnb and it's going to be magical. And I would completely be in the situation. I would have no idea what to do. And this is, I think, before social media. So it's not like she was sitting on her phone. Like, she genuinely had no idea what to do with herself. I love that scene where she goes to the grocery store and she's just throwing chocolates, and her comedic like tone is so great in this movie. Just the way she's so weird and like quirky, like the way that she like tries to bite the bag of chocolates and she's like drinking out of bottle, and her being in the outfit that you're in right now.
Yeah, her physical comedy is so good, and I think that's something that me and you both really appreciate in movies. The most notable scene for me, because it was so subtle, and I had to go back and rewind it because I'm like, this is so good, I want to make sure I'm like catching all these little things that she's doing, is the scene where she first meets Jude Law and he comes in and she's in her sweatpants, and she looks beautiful, but she doesn't think that she looks good. And every time he turns around, she's just like adjusting something, like, her sweatpants are kind of like riding up her legs, and she's trying to get it down, and like he turns around and then she has to like go back to it because she doesn't get it all like in one movement.
That scene. And she's fixing her hair.
Yeah, she fixes her hair like 5 times.
I also love the introduction of her character.
Yes.
It's her throwing a shoe at Edward Burns' head.
Yes,
It's amazing.
your buddy.
I call him Eddie because we're on that, we're on that level. Can we take a minute and just talk about Iris for a little bit?
Of course.
And just talk about how much we love Kate. Let's break it down.
While Cameron Diaz's character, Amanda, was definitely the more entertaining of the two, for me, I felt like Iris was more of the relatable one, even though thankfully I've not been in a situation as toxic as she is in her relationship with Jasper. That first scene with the two of them where she's like at her desk was so strong, and it felt so... I have to think that like Nancy Meyers has been in a situation like that, because I feel like she nailed exactly what that feels like. I don't say we've all been in situations like that or like similar to that, but either we have or we've seen our friends do it. And there's always this, it's never as simple as like, he's a bad guy and you need to get out of this, because she really shows us like what a person like that can do to you and make you feel. And like, you have so much, I had so much compassion for her.
Love that her random office friend who's chain smoking a cigarette is like, you're pretty pathetic, aren't you? But she's saying it in a tone of like, you're pathetic because I've been there and a lot of women have been there. Yeah, I think relatable is such a relatable word. I really had that, the introduction of the movie, I love that it's her in her voice, because she's a writer. She lays it out so perfectly. It shows the different buckets of relationships and then pulling it back to her own experiences. And there's something about the setting of being in this office with a bunch of windows and everyone's outside laughing, and you kind of feel like everyone is peering in and looking in at you, and you're so vulnerable. I think she is so vulnerable in that space. It's at her place of work, and the stakes are so much higher. That moment when she finds out that he's engaged, like, doesn't it just give you like this piercing feeling in your center? Because I feel like that does happen to a lot of people. They're in relationships, whether it's long or short, they break up and then they find someone else and then they get married right away. And that's a really difficult situation. It feels so real. Like that entire sequence, that entire scene, everything that she's feeling, everything that she's writing, your heart like aches when she gives him that Christmas gift and he is creepily talking about how he like has lingerie that he bought for her. It adds like a lot of strength to this movie. I know this is a rom-com, but even after that, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but if you have a day that you just had a really bad day and you wait, you're not going to cry. You are not going to cry until you get home. And she freaking went all the way from her office in London, took the train home to her little, they said it was about a 40-minute train ride. And then she has to make that trek back to Rosewood Cottage. And just, you feel like all the emotion welling, and the fact that she could have, Nancy Meyers could have easily like just made her upset and kind of cut to the next scene. But the fact that they brought us there and you just hear her wailing when she shuts the door and even crying while she's putting out like the bowl of food for her dog. I love that. I love all of those scenes. I think that they're really emotional.
Yeah, it was done really well. And I liked the comedic pairing and structure with like Amanda not being able to cry, really setting them apart as of having different personalities and being very different characters, just like their houses. All right, so what did you think about the chemistry with their kind of like the male, what we'll consider to be the male leads? Because before I started the movie this morning, I had this in my head where I was like, I don't remember the Kate Winslet, Jack Black connection really being there. But then the very first scene that they're in together, which by the way, I know there's a lot happening in this movie, but like, I feel like he's really not in it that much. And other than like the very opening scene, and he is the first character to be seen, we don't get him again until we're like a third of the way into the movie. But the scene where he comes to the house and he explains to her about what is it called? Like,
Santa Ana wins.
yeah. Okay. The Santa Ana wins. I was like, oh no, I feel the chemistry. But then as it went on, then I was going back and forth between like, do I just think that Jack Black is like fun and funny and like charismatic, but like in a fun way, not like a creepy, because charismatic I think has like a spectrum of like, could be very, for some people, I think really have ill intentions. And I think that he's just like naturally charismatic when he's being himself. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's okay for this to bleed a little into the what we didn't like section. I am such a softie for Jack Black. I love so many of his movies. He's really genuine and silly, and it's not this front. I think he's really able to like bring out the silly in other people in every movie that he's in and make them soften up a little bit. So I had this thought. I wondered if it wasn't him playing that role, if I really would have just not liked the chemistry. I know it's a love story and they're kind of supposed to find their people, but in a way, I didn't really want her to like find someone. I wanted her to just find herself. And I think that she did in those 2 weeks, like meeting Arthur and talking about her love of movies and just having this fun little trip, like without a love interest. I think a lot of people would probably disagree with me on that, but I don't really know if that was needed. Maybe if it was like, what if that was just like a platonic relationship and they both helped each other get through this difficult time with his girlfriend cheating on him and her being, broken up with by this horrible guy. And it, like, maybe we didn't need the love aspect of it.
Yeah, like I hate to say this because I love Jack Black and I loved him in this, but I could see a version of the movie that like his character doesn't even exist, because I feel like she, like you said, she's learning and growing, and I think that she does all of that with Arthur.
Yeah, and she does it on her own.
Yeah.
She's in a new place. I mean, her whole monologue about how you go somewhere new and you find people that make you feel whole and you feel new again. Like, I almost think it would be funnier if she had met him and then somehow he just ended up at the Hanukkah party, but it wasn't like this Miles and Iris love story.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the more sweet or sincere moments, I do love when he writes her that little,
her
song,
theme.
her theme song.
Yeah.
I think that's a sweet moment, and I appreciated another like LA house. It was kind of cool to see someone who works in the music industry or movie industry and having this little recording studio and them having their little, cups of tea. But I think the aspects that I love most about this movie and Iris is just her being in this toxic mindset and relationship, even in this cozy, joyous Christmas wonderland, and then feeling so free the minute she gets into sunshine and steps into LA and having this vacation and she can swim and cuddle and watch movies and then, meeting Arthur. I think that's enough for me.
Yeah, there were so many like physical cues of her finding the restorativeness that she needed by being in this house, like throwing herself on the bed, swimming in the pool, going out for walks. Just, it felt like a retreat. I really, the more we talk about this, I would love to go to that house.
I know. I would love to also just pull up a seat and be at dinner with her and Arthur. She starts crying. I also love that she starts crying in so many scenes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very emotional and I feel like I can connect with that. Let's shift talking about her relationship with Arthur, because I think there's a lot of relationships in this movie. It's Graham and his children. It is, Amanda and Graham. It's Iris and Miles. But I think one of my favorite relationships in this movie is Iris and Arthur. In a lot of movies, they don't really incorporate someone who's older and has kind of had their love and lived a long life. And I love that he can see through her. And it's very meta because he's thinking in a movie mindset, like, how do I kind of mold these characters? And I love that he says to her, what is a beautiful woman like you doing alone at Christmas? And she says, oh, I'm just trying to get away from people. And he just knows. He's seen it, but he's also created it in his stories and his writing. And she needed that. She needed someone who like saw through her, but was there to tell her like, you're not crazy. You're not doing anything wrong in this situation. You were wronged. And I think that their meet cute is really special, because you see this compassionate side of her who just cares about other people, and it makes me miss Pop. I just want to hang out with elders and have conversations with them about their lives.
Yeah, he was a really strong character and a unique inclusion in a story like this. I think another one of the reasons that we haven't like come out and said it, but that we love this movie so much is because it's everyone in this movie like either works in movies or in writing. So it's very much like a world that we want to be part of. We gravitate toward the people in our family who are in roles like this. So it all feels very like comforting, and like everyone kind of like understands each other and like we understand them.
It feels magical.
It does.
It feels like people I want to sit down with Arthur and ask him all these questions. I want to sit down with Iris. I want to sit down with Graham. I want to sit down with Amanda.
Yeah.
And Miles too. Before we had this recording, I haven't seen many things that Eli Wallach is in, but I was on the phone with our dad and I said, Dad, what are your memories of Eli Wallach? And he's like, oh, I'm really trying to think. He's like, I've obviously, seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I have seen in, recent years. But he said, one of my prominent memories of him is that he's in Godfather Part 3. And he's like, and I think Connie poisons him and kills him. Especially when you're watching movies when you're younger and you're not familiar with actors who are older and are prominent people in Hollywood. I think it's really special that she was able to include someone like him, because regardless of him having a film background, I think that just adds to it. He's special on his own in this movie, even if it was totally fake and just an actor playing this role.
We really gravitate toward filmmakers. I think that of course all filmmakers have appreciation for the people who came before them and old movies, but I can specifically see so many references in Nancy Meyers movies, also everything that like Amy Sherman Palladino has created, that like both of them are kind of attracted to like the same kind of the old rom-coms. Like we see a little shot, Iris is watching His Girl Friday at one point, like, they're talking about Cary Grant. You know that like those actors and like that time in movie history is so important to them. And I feel like it's so important to me too. So anytime I have a chance to like enjoy content that like references those things, like just feels like such a treat. And it feels like it's made like just for me, because it's like, how many people in your life are like, oh, I'm obsessed with Cary Grant?
I know. Matt Fiegelman, you listening to this? He's our one ally. I also just love that Eli makes this reference where she's, as the younger person in the movie, Iris says to him, what was it like working in Hollywood at that time? Was it amazing? And he was like, it was better than amazing.
I love that he said that.
So, it's so special. And I think when I was younger watching this movie, I never really cared as much about the Arthur relationship. I always just wanted to see more of like the Graham and Amanda scenes, but I think it's become my favorite aspect of the movie.
Mm-hmm. Like that, it could really be its own story.
Yeah.
And like it has its own arc. So whenever we record on Skype, no one ever gets to see these because they don't get translated to the video, but I always name the meeting. So today's meeting is called Arthur's Hanukkah Party, and Laura always names herself like a character. So today Laura says the leading lady. So I wanted to talk about how much I loved this inclusion, and I feel like it's kind of gotten bastardized over the years. I mean, we see on social media the phrase like, be the what is like be the lead in your story or like be the main character energy. But I don't know if this is like the first time something like this was written for a movie, but I think because it was in a scene with Arthur and the way that he explained it was beautiful. I loved it.
I know. And it was, she says it in a way that was like, oh, that's kind of offensive,
Yeah.
but it was what I needed to hear. I think that scene is really special. It's not in this exactly memorable space. I think that the houses and even the pub, like I prefer the pub scene. The restaurant isn't anything to write home about, but that conversation that they have, which is maybe about 5 minutes, them sitting and having dinner together. I also think that the lead of her asking him, she sees his TV dinner tray and she's in his house and she's kind of getting a peek under the hood of what his day-to-day is like. It's kind of lonely. He has papers piled up and her just saying, I just got here. I don't know anyone. Do you want to have dinner with me? I know it sounds maybe a little romantic and corny, and it's not just in a romance sense of meeting someone new, like a love interest, but just friends too. I think having the courage to say that to someone, like meeting someone new and saying, hey, do you want to grab dinner? Or you want to get a cup of coffee? Or do you want to just sit and talk for a while? And I just love that he knows I haven't been busy since 1987. And then just them having this like magical dinner together. I love their relationship in this movie.
And I love that the dinner that they went to, well, I feel like this is a great food movie, so we'll have a lot more to talk about in our food section. But I love that the restaurant that they were at reminds me, I don't know if they said what it was, but like it reminds me of the Brown Derby. Like it felt like a like classic Hollywood dinner
What is the
setting.
Brown Derby?
The Brown Derby is like a famous restaurant in Hollywood. Like it's in an I Love Lucy episode, and they've recreated it in Disney's Hollywood Studios. And this is like I'll get this wherever I can. Every time that we go to Hollywood Studios, I'm like, can we go to the Brown Derby? Because they have this martini there that I like, and they have this like Cobb salad. I think the guy who invented it like for the Brown Derby, and they serve
like
that.
I could see it having a lot of like classic, just like a good steak, a Cobb salad, or a wedge salad, and just like a good side of mashed potatoes or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like that. It has like like the big red booths kind of setting.
It's funny because that setting reminds me more of somewhere you would find in New York, not in LA. But maybe it's just because I'm living in LA in 2023 and it's a little different. Speaking of, I just, this isn't exactly something I like, but it was just funny to be looking at it from the mind of someone who lives in LA. And they only show these beautiful neighborhoods with the palm trees. I don't even know where Amanda lives because when she gets off the plane and goes into the cab, she drives past like Santa Monica and is in, by the ocean. I have to imagine that she lives in like Hollywood Hills or Beverly. It looks like she lives in Beverly Hills. I don't know. I didn't know movie editors make that much money, but she looks like she's a billionaire.
I thought that when she was going to talk about her parents, she was going to kind of like explain that maybe she like inherited this business from them, but she's just doing really, really
she's
well.
Doing it. Before we kind of trail off from this part, as much as I don't love Miles's character, I'm happy that they were able to incorporate Blockbuster into this movie. I don't really love that scene, but I think there's a lot of different aspects of the movie that just make you feel nostalgic for this time period. Having a DVD, going and physically getting it, and then bringing it home.
It made me feel sad that I feel like I kind of like just missed. I didn't date much when I was like, in high school, which was kind of like the high school. And like by the time I was out of college, I think the Blockbuster was pretty much done. But I feel sad that I never got to like have like a Blockbuster date night where you like go and you might spend like a really long time picking something out, or maybe like you can't decide with your date and like maybe you pick two movies and do a double feature. Just I feel like there's so many opportunities to like have that be part of your night and have it be fun.
Now we just find it on Hulu and have to pay $14 for it. It's just not the same.
Or more realistically, spend like an hour trying to decide what to watch and then just, for us, like rewatch Frasier, rewatch The Office or Seinfeld again.
Sex in the City, my latest crave. Just some other things. I want to go back to the Jasper and Ira. I think the opening scene is so special, but I think that Nancy does a really good job of creating him as like the perfect fuckboy, but someone that you're like, I don't know, even watching it, I'm never like, oh, he's a horrible person, but he's not like that bad. And I think that's
the point. Yeah. She nailed it.
I think one of the, again, and I left this out earlier, but it felt so real to me, maybe just from like college experiences. I've never, had as deep cuts as she has, but just the email that she sends him, and she backtracks on the deer, but the line, it would be really nice if you let me fall out of love with you. And it was such a perfect, like, I feel like that scene was needed. She didn't have to put like an airplane scene, but she sees like the tall, dark, and handsome man, and she's all disheveled, and you felt her in that situation where she's like, she's a romantic, she's open for love, and she gets that email.
I'm so like don't say that. Please don't send this email. But
I know. No, I feel like it was needed.
We didn't really talk about Jude Law. I feel like I don't want to I don't want to say too many things about him because he's just, I think, incredibly good looking, and he's charismatic. I feel like he's great, but I almost like, I guess I haven't seen him in enough things to know if he's a really good actor or if this was a really good part for him. I don't know. I feel like I'm so distracted by how good looking he is. I can't properly assess him.
I know. Just the scene where he wakes up in the morning and he's like, "Oh, I must have lost my contacts,"
and then he puts his glasses. I wrote like a paragraph about that. It's
so infuriating because whenever Dom like wears his glasses because his contacts are bothering him, I'm like, why do you look so fucking good? Like, It's so frustrating. You look so handsome. You look like a English professor at like Yale. It drives me nuts. But just those little, he looks so sexy, even when he's wasted, and the shots that they get of him when Imogen Heap is playing in the background and he walks into the bar and he has like his big coat on and he's at the pub with his couple friends. He's just, every scene is good. I think before we move on, we also have to have a moment for, his daughters and how absolutely adorable they are. I don't know how they cast these kids, but they were so perfect, so sweet. It makes you want to have like 3 of them. Like, I would have all those girls. I'm like, please, I will have daughters right now. But I think that they do. I can't imagine the movie without that. That part. I know it's not critical for the plot line. Oh, it's a good twist. I think because I've seen this movie so many times, I'm like waiting for it. I can't wait for that scene. But I'm excited. Spoiler alert. But someone who hasn't seen the movie yet and gets to that part, you're like, oh, this is quite the turn. And I like the montage scenes with them. I think they're sweet. It's a very, I know it's a 2-week movie, so it's very fast and you're like, this is so unrealistic, but bringing food and sitting and having a conversation at a table is so important to the fabric of this podcast. But I notice how it's the Arthur Iris dinner scene and the Graham Amanda lunch scene, and also I like the Miles Iris sushi date. I think that's sweet too. So good, like at home table moments, but also good eating out dinner moments.
I think that when we get to our food section, we should each pick our favorite dinner scene.
Yes.
So start thinking about that. But
I will.
Thank
you for placing that.
I also wanted to back up what you said about how perfect those 2 girls were. Just so well cast. They felt so genuine, like just they just found two little British kids and were like, hey, do you want to be in this movie? But I think also that I may have said this in our Parent Trap episode. I think because Nancy Meyers has daughters, I very much feel like she understands how young girls would act and like what their motivations were. And I don't know, I felt like she has this like special way of showcasing them in movies that feel really, I don't know, like, yeah, exactly. That's the word that I'm looking for. Like I'll call back to this just because I loved this so much in The Parent Trap, but I feel like this is kind of the best example of what I'm trying to say is I love the scene where Hallie, pretending to be Annie, is with her mom for the first time, and she's touching all of the things like on her dresser and just kind of like taking it all in. And I said this in the episode, but like I remember doing that like on Mom's dresser, just kind of like going through all her like her jewelry box and just touching all her everything that was on her dresser. It's so genuine.
Yeah, and I think of coming from a family of 4 girls, I know there's only 2 daughters in this movie, but their roles of older and youngest are so on point as he calls her the protector. Mm-hmm. Sophie's my protector, and Olivia is, a ball buster. She's funny, she's crazy, she gets what she wants. So I feel like if we were leading roles, we would definitely fall into place between Sophie and Olivia. Mm-hmm. That part of the movie is so heartwarming. One last thing before we move on, which was a burning question I needed to ask you, because we haven't traveled together in a while. It feels like we have because we're always keeping each other up to date. When Amanda gets to the Rosewood Cottage and she's in frantic mode, she doesn't know what to do, she's unpacking everything. When you go away somewhere for a week, do you unpack your suitcase?
I do. And in this last year, Jimmy and I have been traveling like nearly every week because Jimmy has to travel for work, and I go with him. And believe it or not, this is extremely uncharacteristic of him, but the person who got me started doing this is Jimmy. We're there only for either one night or 2 nights, and he always completely unpacks his suitcase, puts it in the drawers, and I've started doing the same. And it has added a little bit of sanity in what feels like a very disruptive life right now for me.
I am like not consistent because Dom and I when we go on long trips, we're usually bouncing around so much. We're like in a city for 2 days and we're moving somewhere else, or we're on the road, even if it's in a national park, whatever it is. But I always feel calm when I unpack. Mm-hmm. There is nothing worse than rummaging through her suitcase to try and find something, and it just turns into this like ball. Sorry, Dom, I'm shouting you out. I'm calling you out right now, but Dom is not an unpacker when he goes places. His clothes are all over the place, but it works for him. He always looks good with his outfits and knows how to find everything.
He pulls it off.
Okay, let's get into our nitpicks with this movie. First thing is kind of backtracking to what I had said earlier about my desire to do a solo trip, go to an Airbnb somewhere. Even when Dom and I go to an Airbnb alone, I usually can't sleep. I'm always like, someone's going to break into this house.
Yeah.
If someone is banging on your door so loud, I know she was awake at least. She probably would have literally started crying if she had woken up to that. Are you not so afraid? She didn't even look panicked. If I was alone in an Airbnb and someone started banging on the door at 1 a.m.,
I would just probably lock myself in the bathroom and call the police. Yeah.
I would have called the police instantly. She probably didn't have service out there. I feel a little icky about the fact that he's like wasted and kind of showing up. And I know that she like literally asked to sleep with him, and I'm not shaming her at all. I think that just something she wanted to do in the moment. I think it would have been a little worse and a little more old timey but he did, make a move. He kissed her when they were going to bed. I think it all felt very fast to me. I think that I would have appreciated it just as much if they hadn't slept together that night, and they just kind of stayed up late drinking brandy and talking and being silly with each other and just had a kiss. Maybe that's a little my PG version, but I think that would have been just as sweet. And then waking up in the morning and maybe like having coffee together. Maybe her like waking up and coming down the stairs and seeing him like sleeping on the couch or reading a book with his glasses on or something like that. I also kind of going to the next night. I do love that she stays and I love that she goes to the pub. But I wish we could have seen in the extended version, like, what happens in the hours between when she gets to the pub and she wakes up the next morning and was like, oh my God, I was so wasted last night. I feel like there's probably a lot of comedy in that. Like maybe them trying to get a cab back to Rosewood Cottage and her like spilling beer or them meeting people in the pub. Like I wanted to be like a fly in the wall for that, but I don't think that there was enough time.
I agree with you. I think that the line that I didn't like was him saying that, like, kind of like this happens a lot. Like I get drunk and then I end up here. Knowing later on that he's like this single dad taking care of these two young daughters, I'm like, oh, that's like, it makes me feel like they're not safe. You know what I mean? If that's really what's happening.
I'm
but
trying, like, I mean, everyone, if you're single, like you have, you know, that ability. And I think usually like we'll leave them with.
Yeah, he said they were with their grandparents.
I think it's just more so, it just feels a little icky to me.
It felt like they were trying really hard to like set up the fact that like it was going to be a big twist that he was a dad. But I almost feel like after that twist happened, then like he like really leans into like, oh no, you know, I'm a dad, like I'm reading cookbooks when I go to bed. Like, okay, so you're not the drunken guy who crashes on his sister's couch like every night.
They try so hard to like, I don't think that he comes off as creepy because I think it is important that she's like consensual and like really like it could have gone like really south if he just like kissed her and she was like so not, you know, it could have been really bad. But I don't know. I don't think that we know Amanda enough. Like, you know, we only know her for a day technically. It does seem a little erratic and off character that she's just like, I'm just, you know, going for this and I'm leaving. Really, really big nitpick. And I have felt this way for years. I don't think that they needed the cell phone calls. You're telling me that both of his, you know, 7-year-old and 4-year-old daughter have their own cell phones? We don't need that. I think it actually would add more of an element of surprise if it just was like.
Agreed.
It would have been so much better. I was like, come on. They both have cell phones.
Yeah. And their names are in there. I'm trying to remember in like the earliest cell phone days, like I guess we had people's names in there. It wasn't just like, but I feel like there could have been a time where it was just the phone numbers with no names attached.
Also don't love that he's fucking a stranger in his sister's bed.
Yep. Thought about that too. Didn't like it.
Yeah, and Amanda too. Like at least do the couch. I feel like Iris she'd be like, yeah, it's fine. I don't have company over much. But what about you? Do you feel any different from me?
No, I agree with you. It's not like wrong, but it's like borderline. But like I did appreciate that he made a point of saying, like, she said, like, why didn't we sleep together again? And he's like, because you don't do that when the other person is. I mean, she had no problem doing it with him, but I feel like it's kind of like a different dynamic when it's the other way.
Yeah, I know.
So I appreciated that she included that. I feel like for a woman who's making a movie, you know, today I feel like we've kind of like really better established, like, you know, what's okay and what's not okay. But I feel like this is kind of the end of being more the other way.
I know. I'm happy that it was Nancy making this movie and not a man, because I think it unfortunately would have been a different story.
Yeah.
And that's really triggering for people.
The guys would be all like old guys and younger girls. Yeah.
Oh God. Thank you, Nancy. It's like, I think because Nancy made this movie, she was really thoughtful and careful about drawing lines, but like Miles is like openly flirting with her the whole, like,
Yeah,
Again,
I
I know they
felt
have
that
chemistry.
unease.
I get it.
No,
I mean,
I felt
humans,
that.
people are human beings. Like, you're not going to be this, like, even if you're in a relationship, like, those things happen. But, like, he gets a little drunk at the Hanukkah party and he, like, kisses her twice. And he just, like, the boob graze I did read was, like, an accident and they kind of made it comedic. Like, that was funny. But I don't know. It just feels like I didn't love it. Like, I'm also like, okay, Maggie's cheating on you, but you're going on a blockbuster date with this charming British woman.
Like I said, I felt the chemistry at first, but then I was like, oh no, this is making me uncomfortable. Like, I hate to say this, like, I'm being like so critical. And I know it's like, it's so hard to like, when you like someone to know what to do. But when he just says like, oh, you look really beautiful, the way that he said it made me uncomfortable.
I know. And like the
Why?
Santa
Why
Ana
is that making me
wins.
uncomfortable? I don't know.
I know. I don't know because I think as women we're I feel that way. Like, I know this sounds stupid, but like a couple weeks ago I'm like walking outside my apartment just in like a long sleeve dress, and there was this really like old, I mean, he was old, and I feel like we just let men get away with it, but I was like getting into my Uber and he's like, wow, you look so beautiful in that dress. And
Like,
it was just
no
like,
girl
I'm
would
like,
ever do that to a
no. And
guy.
it's just like, I think because we know what is under those words, it's not like a genuine, like, even if you have like family friends or friends of friends who are like, oh, Laura, you look so nice. Like, it's different. I feel
Hmm.
like we have the intuition to draw those lines. And we also have like the power and right to like decide what makes us feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And I feel like throughout my 20s and even I just feel like I've been in too many of those scenarios where it doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of sincerity. It feels creepy.
You nailed it, because it's hard. You can't say like it's okay when it comes from this person and it's not okay when it comes from this person. It's very much a feeling and this intuition that what the intentions are behind the person. Because like you said, lots of people have like said like, oh, like you look beautiful, and it feels good, but then it could just be a different setting or like a different tone, a different situation, and that those exact same words feel like make you incredibly uncomfortable.
I think because it's Jack Black, I'm just like, oh, my heart just softens, and he could do anything. And I feel like I didn't take as many things to heart in this movie. I also like just don't know if I fully believe their chemistry. Again, I think it feels like it fits more of a platonic chemistry, where I feel like with Bram and Amanda, it's definitely more like sexual and like physical based and also emotional. Like it seems like there's a real connection there, even though it's very fast. She did this in the right way, but I think when I've watched this so many times, it came out in 2006. So I was pretty young when this movie came out, and I watched it with subtitles on, and I didn't pick up on the amount of just creepy and awful things that Jasper says throughout the movie. We're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about the red bikini and the lingerie he bought her, and like calling her Simpkins. Like, there's so many things that she did it in the right way. And again, I think that it feels like it's coming from a place of her being in this situation. And sometimes you just don't know what to do. Like, especially if you're in love with the person. In love. I don't think she was really in love with him. I think it was infatuation, but she uses the line, love is blind. She's completely blinded by how, like, but there's so many. I don't think it's not something I don't like. I think I don't like that exists for women.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Should I share something in a different category that I didn't like?
Sure.
This is a writer nitpick, and I know that Dom would back me up on this, but the scene that she has with her smoking friend at the beginning is just straight up exposition. Like, they didn't even try to incorporate it in a very organic way. Her friend, if she's really her friend, she shouldn't need to do this, but recaps her entire romantic history with Jasper. Like, I just watched that and I was like, I would not expect this from Nancy Meyers. She can do better.
I feel like I was watching a different movie.
Yeah.
I think I liked the friend.
Yeah, I
And
like
just
that. It's not her fault.
general demeanor. It was just like we didn't need literally the scene of her in her office writing.
That's all we needed. Yep.
I knew everything that I knew their entire history. Her kind of saying, I've been so miserable this year. She could have said, like, even though he's shagging another woman or something. Like, they could have just, like, dropped that in. But also, we just would have known. Like, we did not. It was, it took it away. But still a great movie for me. I don't think it stripped out too much that I absolutely hated it.
Yeah, I hated that it was in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, oh, this is like a poor way to kick things off. Like I trusted that it was going to get better, but I really did not like that. Oh, that was like the only like big thing that stuck in my head. But let me consult my notes.
I can point out one thing that I do agree with that I never picked up on, but I did listen to the Ringer episode about this one maybe a year or two ago.
I don't think I've listened to that.
It's a really good episode, but they talk about how this is a Christmas movie and there's no Christmas Day.
Good point.
And also it's like Arthur's award ceremony just happens to be 2 weeks and is on Christmas Eve.
He got his alterations on his suit back that quick.
Yeah, come on.
That does not happen.
That's we're talking about.
Oh, okay. The other two things I have. One, I think is, I don't want to even say it, but all right. I feel like I'm going to be struck by lightning when I say this. I mean no disrespect, but I think the only thing that ages this movie is the music. I'm sorry. Hans Zimmer is like legendary. I read that Jack Black's like kind of office music setup was like based purely on Hans Zimmer's like real life situation. I know that he's done a lot of work with Nancy Meyers and very iconic, but I wasn't into the instrumentals of the music, and it made me feel like, oh, this is like the early 2000s.
Yeah, there was one particular scene that when Iris has the monologue, or I guess, is it considered a monologue?
Like the voiceover?
No, not a voiceover. When she's talking to Jack Black about how, actually, I guess it is. She's talking about I was in love with someone in London, then you go somewhere new and you meet someone. And she has this, like, I think it just takes away from what she's saying. I almost feel like it didn't even need music over it. So there were certain parts that just, didn't work for me.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of this, but you just brought up a really great point. I think that especially with Iris's character, there are so many of these like really like real raw moments, and the music, tries to bring in this like emotion, and we don't need it. Like it's fine on its own, and I think it would shine more without it.
Yeah. We have Kate. She is our emotion.
She is.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
Also, I know you brought up like the Santa and Wins and their chemistry, but I don't like a lot of like the cheesy love quotes. I know that it's supposed to be meta, that it's like a love story talking about love, but I feel like let the actors do their jobs. I don't need all bets are off and talking about the Santa and Wins.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Just didn't add. It didn't add anything for me.
Okay. Another thing I hated. I don't know how you're going to fall on this, but I hated Mr. Napkin Head. I'm sorry. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's not funny. In my mind's like, I don't think it's funny for kids. I don't think it's funny for adults. I was just like, when is this going to be over?
I feel like this speaks miles of you not having kids because you're like,
I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Making up these games. You're like, my kid is sitting and watching Cary Grant with me.
Yeah.
We're not playing Mr. Napkin Head. I have a rebuttal for this. I think that the lead up, I think it shows an adorable side of Graham's character. where they say, "To Mr. Napkin Head, please." And he's so like embarrassed. You can tell he's like this girl that I'm sleeping with who I'm really into, and I'm gonna do this like really embarrassing dad thing right now. Where he just starts getting so shy and he's like, "No, please, please don't make me do it right now." I think it's cute. It's not necessarily like my favorite aspect. I just like that scene and then blowing on hot chocolate.
I think it's creepy.
Being cute together. I think it's creepy.
It is. It's creepy. If you saw, I mean, forget him breaking into the house at 1 a.m. If you came across someone dressed as Napkin Head, my first reaction wouldn't be like, "Oh, this is hilarious." It would be like, "No, I'm running away from this situation."
It kind of is reminding me of like the Silent Snowman movie that we used to watch growing up.
Oh, just like the instrumental.
And that was like a comfort movie that mom used to put on for me. So maybe we're different on that spectrum.
No, not into it.
She's not into the Napkin Head. Okay.
No.
All right. I respect it. It doesn't bother me too much.
All right. Last thing it's not a thing I hate, just curious your take on it. Actually, all right, two things. One, what did you think of the ending? And two, since I felt like it was kind of unclear, what do you think happened next?
The ending, I don't know what I would have rewritten. I just think it's unrealistic. Like Amanda and Iris are acting like best friends. I feel like if it was someone staying in my house as my Airbnb, I'd be like, I don't really want to hang out with this person on New Year's Eve. But maybe they're lonely and they're like, we're just gonna roll with this. I think it would have been sweet to just see them on their own New Year's Eves. Like, I think that Iris stays in LA and her and Miles like make a dinner and hang out with maybe like Arthur and the guys.
The Hanukkah crew? Yeah.
The Hanukkah crew, and watch movies and are drinking wine and are having like a party at Amanda's house or Miles' house or someone. And she just stays in LA and she has like an LA New Year's Eve. And I thought that the Amanda and Graham and the kids thing was very sweet. I liked them just being in the house. What I think happens next, I feel like Amanda would move to like London and like start doing like production somehow over there if she really was like head over heels in love with him. But she's so married to her job and loves it and enjoys it that I find it hard to believe that she's just going to drop everything for this guy. I think that they try and do the long distance thing for a while, and it's really difficult, kind of what they had laid out for us, but they try it, and I think that she ends up moving there. I think that Miles and Iris really love each other as like friends, and I think that they don't stay together, but they write to each other and like maybe both end up with different people, but they form this really special bond. They're like, it's just not really realistic. Like, I really love my job at this publishing company, or she works for the newspaper, and he really loves his job doing music in LA. So they kind of they have to stay in their places.
I think similar to what you laid out for Amanda and Graham, that I do think that they try it. And I think it kind of ends up being this maybe decade-long back and forth, on and off. Like they're together, but then they break up, and then they get back together again. And sometimes it's a fling, and sometimes it's like a steady thing. And then they get together and stay together like later in life, like after, when they can be in the same place at the same time. That would feel more realistic to me. And for Iris, I do think that she would end up leaving her job and moving to LA. She seems really happy there. Even though she, had it out with Jasper, he still like works with her. And I feel like she would just be like, and he's not leaving, and his new wife isn't leaving. I'd just be like, I'm getting out of here. Like, I've now seen where I can be happy somewhere else.
And I could see her in the film industry in LA.
Yeah, she seems like she was like, this is so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think she stays with Miles. I don't know.
I don't.
I see them more as like friends.
In my story, it's kind of like her romantic life is like not important to her overall happiness. Like maybe she dates people and maybe it smiles, but like I think that like her work and personal happiness kind of becomes the most important thing for her.
Yeah. And I think that her and Arthur like stay
Friends.
friends and they have dinner like once a week.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, we want to hear from you what you think happens.
Yeah, what happens next?
In the holiday part 2. All right, I'm excited. What is your favorite scene and favorite quote? And do they couple?
I think it's the Arthur Hanukkah party. Really heartwarming. It's the meal that I want to be at. So for those of you who don't follow Laura on Instagram or are not on our family food chat, last week Dom made Laura this like Jewish-based, foods-based spread, including like bagels and lox, and latkes were involved. And then he got Laura a jar of pickles, and Laura was just saying that like inside of her is this, you know, kind of like old Jewish lady. So I was thinking of you in this scene and how you would have fit in seamlessly with this crowd. We are not Jewish, but like I am with you in like the Jewish delis, and I feel like Italians and Jewish have like so much crossover in our, you know, mannerisms and family dynamics. Me and you could have sat at that table and just had a fabulous night.
The idea of laughing and having wine pouring. So I had friends over for my 30th birthday the other night, and I'm being very critical of myself because I just feel like my food did not stand out the way that I wanted it to.
I'm sure it was
one
delicious.
of my favorite aspects was just looking around the table, and I went out and I bought 4 bottles of like red wine from this little wine shop near our apartment. And the wine was just flowing. Like every time we looked over, like there was a wine bottle empty. There's 13 of us, and everyone was just loving the wine and laughing, and that's my happy place. Sitting around the table, and when you look at like an empty tablescape, I woke up the next morning and there were just empty wine glasses everywhere and napkins on the floor and wine stains and leftover cake. And I love empty tablescapes at the end of the night. It doesn't bother me that I have to clean it up because it means that we had a great time. And I like that they show that Miles stayed and they kind of like, you know, cleaned everything up together and had leftovers. It felt right and made me excited for Thanksgiving tomorrow.
So not that you were wearing rice on your tux, wondering what happened to your life.
No. Wait, what is that from?
The beginning of Father of the Bride, which is funny because I feel like it kind of opens with that kind of like after the party, after everyone has left kind of scene. But it is, we don't love messes, but like that kind of mess we love because it shows signs of happiness and great conversation and bonding with family and friends. Yeah.
Nancy Meyers does a good job of this. Like, yes, everything's polished and beautiful, but she's able to create these set designs that are messy and very human and have a lot going on, and it just makes you feel at home no matter where you are. Yeah. That's the difference between like a house, not a home. These are homes and environments that she creates that you just want to have a seat at the table at.
Yeah, like so beautiful, but like it's impossible to mess something else up. Even if you like spilled a full bottle of wine, like it would match the aesthetic.
Oh, it'd be great. You want it.
All right, this is not my favorite line, but I wrote it down, so I'll just share it. I like when Amanda is doing a little bit of a monologue, and we didn't mention this, but randomly John Krasinski and Catherine Hahn work for Cameron Diaz, but were only utilized for like this one teeny tiny scene in the movie.
I want a separate movie with just them.
Yeah. I want to know what they do for her. And like we can't even call it a cameo because of when it was made.
Why in my mind I want them to be married.
I like that.
What's going on with them? I want to know what their stories are. All right.
What's happening with those characters?
Michelle, put it in your idea notebook that I got you. The cat. We're just going to call it.
I'm literally going to write this down.
We're going to call it the editors.
Okay, here we go. The maiden page, because I didn't have this, I don't think, when we were recording, because we recorded. You got this for me for my birthday?
Yes. So
Okay.
just for all of you listening, Michelle and I, hopefully you know this by now, but for new listeners, we have this joke that we always think of these screenwriting ideas or book ideas, and we haven't executed on one of them. And I always say, just put it in our idea jar. So I got Michelle a little tiny notebook for her birthday last year. And what does it say on the front? It's like 100 great ideas or something.
$1,000,000 idea or
$1,000,000.
oh, $100 ideas.
100.
I think
Okay.
it would be million though.
Cross it out. Cross it out.
Okay, so I wrote the editor starring Katherine Hahn and John Krasinski.
Perfect.
First idea in this book.
Love it.
All
I think
right.
that's a great first idea.
So anyway, the reason I brought them up was that Cameron Diaz has this great line where she says that single women over 30 are more likely to be attacked by a terrorist. It didn't really make sense even after she explains it, but I still thought it was funny.
I also like that she precedes that with talking about how she like reads a lot of magazines, and you could tell, I feel like she's, grabbing a lot of these ridiculous thoughts.
She's reading the headlines, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Not the articles.
Poor thing.
Okay, here is my favorite line. This line comes from Iris, and she's saying it out loud, but she's saying it to herself. This is in the scene where Iris and Amanda are essentially like DMing with each other and telling each other about each other's lives and about each other's homes. And the way that Iris describes herself is,
I'm Iris, by the way. I'm very normal. Neat freak, healthy, non-smoker. Single. Hate my horrible life.
I love that exchange, and I love that it's like instant messenger-ish, but with a house. Just brings back a lot of nostalgia.
the clacking on the keyboards. The keyboards were a lot noisier in the early 2000s. It made me think of You've Got Mail, and it would probably annoy me today. I mean, I don't work in an office, but that probably would be annoying, but I like it in the movie.
When I get like gel nails, I'm a big clacker on my keyboard, and I always like it because I think it reminds me of the 90s. I had the Hanukkah party scene as my second,
Okay.
but the scene at the Mill house, so Graham's house, when I know that's multiple scenes technically, but the tent scene is really special when he says like, you don't like tents. They go upstairs and they're laying together. And I know it's very corny with the Three Musketeers, but I actually think the music works. It kind of goes up in that part, and they just lightly hold hands. It also kind of remind me of childhood, because Lisa and I used to build tents in our room. Not as quite eloquent. We had old blankets. It usually was really dark in there. We had a flashlight, but we didn't have the stars. But I really love the scene. Again, another table scene where they're sitting around the table and drinking hot chocolate. And, he says, all of you have 5 marshmallows. I like that we both picked table scenes.
Have to.
And your champagne theory holds up in this movie, by the way.
Oh, that there's a presence of champagne?
There's, I think, multiple presences.
Yes. We debunked it in several of the Spielberg episodes, but
no.
I think it's just Spielberg is anti-champagne.
Yeah, he's not. He's a lot of adventure movies. They don't have time for champagne. I have a couple of favorite quotes. Not really movies that like things that I would quote, but I think that just work really well. I like the Jude Law quote. I'm a full-time dad. I'm a working parent. I'm a mother and a father. I'm a guy who reads parenting books and cookbooks before I go to sleep. I spend weekends buying tutus. I'm learning to sew. I'm Mr. Napkin Head. I feel like it's very Laura writing. It reminds me of a poem.
It does.
So I really like it. I also love the line where they're out for lunch and he says, a good book, a great film, a birthday card. I weep. And I just love that she's crying, laughing. And I like a lot of the things that Arthur says. I like that he says, so a man and a woman both need something to sleep in and both go to the same men's pajama department. And such a good monologue because he really takes his time with it. You feel like you're watching a movie. The man says to the salesman, I just need bottoms. And the woman says, I just need a top. They look at each other, and that's the meet cute. And the term meet cute is so adorable and cute and special. And I just want to like put it in a box and wrap it in a bow and give it to someone as a Christmas gift. I would be remiss if I don't mention it.
This is not a hard one to figure out. Iris, in the movies we have leading ladies and we have the best friend. You, I can tell, are a leading lady, but for some reason you're behaving like the best friend.
And I think that I'm going to print that quote off, and I'm going to print it, and I'm going to look at it every day because Eli Wallach knows best.
I love that. That would be a great thing to have up. I have to take my gloves off. The costume is being dismantled as we go on.
The gloves are coming
The scarf
off
has already
for the
come
food.
off.
Well, we're about to eat.
That's
We're
true.
getting
True. I can't eat with.
our-
I've been trying to drink my tea
Shouldn't
with
be
gloves
eating
on,
with
and
gloves on.
no.
Okay, so we mentioned that our champagne theory holds up. There are a couple of scenes that they drink champagne, including the opening office party when Iris is downing champagne in stress mode. We have at the ending at their New Year's Eve party, they're all cheersing to champagne. Makes me want to have a nice cold glass of champagne. I think this movie really makes me want to eat hearty holiday meals. It makes me want to rehave my Jewish deli meal that Dom made for me last week. And again, I don't really eat red meat much, but when they go out for that meal in LA, it just really reminds me of like having like a juicy steak with a baked potato on the side. And it makes me want to have a lot of like hors d'oeuvres, like just little like quiches and little bites. I feel like there's a lot of moments where they're just kind of like having appetizers and champagne in this movie. It makes me want to host with appetizers. What about you? You teased earlier that this is a big food movie. It makes you want to eat a lot of things.
Yeah, well, I felt like there were so many meals at tables, whether it was the ones that were happening inside the home, at Graham's house, at Arthur's house, the Hanukkah party, but then also restaurant meals. I know we mentioned like the Arthur Iris meal, but then there's also when Iris and Miles go and they have sushi, and I love that they sit at the counter. But one thing we have not talked about yet, and this is the thing that made me not only want to eat it, but also in the parameters that they set up, was the Christmas Eve fettuccine. Looked amazing. And am I remembering this right? So they made the Christmas Eve fettuccine and they ate it and watched a movie in the movie room.
Yes.
But then did Amanda also have fettuccine on Christmas Eve? I felt like it made another appearance.
She did. I think she made herself a plate of pasta and was eating alone. And then Graham shows up at her door.
Okay.
He can't sleep. I don't know who he's leaving the kids with. I have a rebuttal for you.
Oh.
I'm not a big fettuccine fan. It just reminds me of it makes me a little nostalgic, but it reminds me of going to like an Italian restaurant in the 90s. And when you're a kid and you get the kids menu and it says fettuccine on it, and it's so heavy. You have like a bite, and you're like, I'm done. I can't. I think I'm going to pass away right now. I think the pasta shape is beautiful. It's thick. It's a good noodle. I think I would have rathered a bolognese, but I think that the fettuccine works well with it. It has, I think, because it's like a white sauce, it's creamy and rich and just, it feels fanciful. But I'm not a big like fettuccine Alfredo. It like sits in my stomach just thinking about it.
I agree.
Sorry.
I'm not a huge fettuccine Alfredo person either. It's not something that I typically order, but I feel like I've had some really good ones. And I think that when we make pasta at home, for whatever reason, we haven't gotten like super sophisticated with our pasta maker. I feel like no matter what we make, if we try to make spaghetti, it always like ends up looking like fettuccine. So I think that we've made it at home and made it like a lot lighter. But I was kind of in my mind, just imagining it like the comfort level that you get from having like a good, like a mac and cheese or like a cacio e pepe, which is probably what would be in it today. I think it was the comfort in it, and pairing it with a movie on Christmas Eve, it just sounds like a dream to me.
Yes, I am in on this scene. I think that I just would have, I'm being snooty, but I think I would have adjusted my pasta sauce. I think that's a good test, a good challenge though. Like, how do you make a fettuccine Alfredo that's not as heavy? Like a creamy pasta sauce that you really like. I'm not a big cacio e pepe fan because I just don't love pepper. It could be really, really peppery. I'm always going to go from like
the red sauce.
Like a red, acidic, sweet, savory, whether it's with a meat, like a turkey meat sauce, beef meat sauce, something like that. That's always going to be my first pick. Pasta is good holiday comfort food though. Like I know a lot of people have like pot roast and ham and potatoes, and it's kind of like a marriage between almost like a heartier Thanksgiving, but we always had like multiple pastas. Like we did the 7 fishes, but it always felt like just like lasagna and like a really good spaghetti was like the star of the show on Christmas Eve for us.
It was like fish, but it was like, let's see how many different ways we can make fish with pasta or with risotto.
It always felt like there was a white clam sauce.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like our version of fettuccine.
Yeah.
I just like the word fettuccine though, even though I don't like fettuccine. Just fettuccine sounds fancy.
It does. Last food item, and I've probably brought this up in every episode, but I like when Amanda shows up at Graham's house with that like bag that looks like she was in like I know they don't have this in Surrey probably, but like, you know, like a Zabar's or like a specialty.
What is the store in New York City? It's like something with a D.
Dean and DeLuca?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like a Dean and DeLuca. Yeah, I'm a big. This has especially cropped up in LA and I think cities, like specialty goods store where they sell like tin fish and good wine, and I'm so happy that is. I hope that trend never ends, because every time I find one of those stores, I'm like a child in a candy shop. And I love the image of a. Did she have a baguette in there?
Yeah, that's
she did, right?
Specifically what I was going to mention was I wanted the
sticking
baguette.
out.
Yeah.
I have about 6 to 7 photos in my camera roll from this past summer. I always drive up to the bakery in Cape Cod, and I specifically go there so I can get a baguette so it's sticking out of the bag, because the bag's never big enough, and I usually have another pastry in there, and it sparks so much joy. Not just a baguette sticking out of a small bag.
That's part of the experience. Yeah.
All right, Michelle, when you come over, I'm expecting you to bring me a bag of goodies.
I will be walking in with a baguette sticking out of a bag.
And you have to dress up like my Bobby. That's something like you would wear. That's a very Michelle outfit.
It is. I liked that outfit.
Yeah.
I liked all the outfits. Again, like slightly dated, but not really. Like their hairstyles, like they looked good.
They look great. I love Iris's kind of like schlumpy look too.
Yeah,
she
yeah.
has like a scarf on, and she looks very cozy. She looks good.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we at dinner party?
We are having a special dinner party. So before we start, we're going to go back to your question, and this will be a prompt for our audience as well. If you had to pick one table or dinner moment, it could be out to eat, it could be at one of the beautiful homes that are featured in this movie, which one would you pick? And give us a little reason why. Michelle.
Before I go, did they make a meal at in Amanda's kitchen?
I think it was just, she had a chef, I think, as you could see her kind of cleaning up in the background. I think that they make the Hanukkah meal. They have a Hanukkah meal. I have to go back and look at the tablescape. And I think that the only thing that they cook in Rosewood Cottage is the fettuccine that she has.
Okay. Oh, so wait, the Hanukkah party was at Amanda's house. That was not at Arthur's?
No, I think it was at Amanda's house.
Okay,
remember,
she hosted it.
Iris is like cleaning up.
Right. And then she's saying about
and
Jack Black at the door when he's being somewhat creepy. Okay. Yeah,
the
I
double
mean,
kiss.
I won't say much more about it because we've already talked about it so
Yeah.
much, but it's the Hanukkah party is my favorite meal. And I love that I was trying so hard to see what food was on the table and I couldn't really figure it out. And I'm not
Like
as
wine
much of
glasses.
a huge wine drinker as you are, but I just love that there was when you see like you described your birthday dinner party to be just like multiple bottles of wine and like a lot of half empty glasses. You just know that there are like so many good conversations happening. And I think that that's why I liked that scene so much, even though we didn't even get to really see the food.
I know. For me, I think I would have picked the Hanukkah party. It was just so fun. But I will say, like, the setting of it was really not even Myers-ish, but just very charming that Graham and Amanda go out for that lunch in an old house in Surrey. It brought me back. One of my favorite trips that Dom and I have ever gone on was our London trip. Because it was mostly every single day. We went out for dinners, but we mostly had really good lunches, and it just transported me back to that. And we would sit at these lunches for 2 hours, not in a rush. We had like off that week from work, and we just would have these delicious meals and really good conversations. And I would always end my meal with like an espresso, and Dom would get his tea. And sometimes I would have both, but it brought me back to that. And I wish there was one really memorable meal that we had because it was in this old place, and all of the like light fixtures were the originally like lit by fire. And it's like I have to look back at the history of it, and I'll have to link out the Instagram and some of my photos when we went, but it was like all lit like on their own, and it was this really old space, and it was so cool. And I feel like London has so many of those just special settings, so it made me want to. We are very overdue. I think in the next like 4 years we somehow have to manifest doing a London trip together.
We will. It
We
needs
will.
to happen. You also just made me think of something else that I was craving throughout this entire movie. This is in the category of craving but not featured in the film. I think when I saw that the pub and just kind of the whole vibe of the town in Surrey, I wanted a pie, like a chicken pot pie. I love that it's something that's like so readily available throughout all of London is like, or in the UK, like pies is a thing. And they're not, I mean, I think they have regular, like what we Americans consider to be pie too, but just these kind of meat pies. And just, I think that it would have fit the whole coziness aesthetic and maybe would have been a better choice for Amanda to have instead of the fettuccine.
Yeah, agree. Oh, I love a pie. I had another meal. I just want to link out all of my favorite meals that we had in London because they were just so memorable. Makes me want to go back so bad. Okay, well, let's create our dinner party for this episode. Maybe we'll do different settings. So why don't you assign me a setting and a couple people?
Okay, so the setting I'm going to assign you is Iris's kitchen, which looked lovely, but didn't really get a lot of time that we got to see any meals being prepared there. So curious to see what you would make of that. And the three characters I'm going to give you since it's always nice to have a friend there, I'll give you your buddy Edward Burns, who played Ethan, Amanda's jerk of an ex-boyfriend. I will also give you Olivia, Graham's daughter, and Catherine Hahn, who's, I don't know what her character's name is because she was only there for
I was going to say
minute.
it would be funny if we did like a cheaters table and it was Edward, Jasper, and I know this is messed up, but I'm like, I could see Olivia growing up to cheat on
Probably.
someone.
Ballbuster. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to throw Jasper in there.
Go ahead. Jasper
Making
can
an
come.
executive
Yeah.
decision. This is tough because you're giving me an eclectic group. Catherine Hahn is pregnant in this movie. I don't know if you noticed.
I did not notice.
There's a child, and we have a guy who works late a lot, so I could see him ordering a lot of takeout. Probably good news for me. And I could see Jasper going out for like a lot of fancy meals and expensing it on the company. I'm going to set the stage. I am a pro in this category because my apartment is very tiny. I'm lucky enough to have wonderful friends who always lend me their fold-out tables. But for some reason, I feel like in this magical cottage town, like they don't have fold-out tables. Like someone is lending her like a beautiful long table that she can like somehow fit in there, and it's going to spill into the living room, which is kind of creates a very cozy setting because you have the fire lit. We're going to have Olivia and Jasper sitting across from each other.
Okay, makes sense.
And we're going to have Catherine and Ethan sitting across from each other. We're separating by, you know, where these people live. I'm going to go classic just because we were talking a lot about pies. I feel like I'm going to make some mincemeat pies. And it's going to be like peas, carrots, onion, a good like beef chuck, and a nice crispy top with some, this is more of American, but some like Brussels sprouts and bacon, like candied.
My favorite.
And I think this is a lot of meat, but I think I'm going to make like a roast chicken, which is actually what I made for the dinner party the other night, which came out really good because I feel like Olivia, it's fancy, but like she would probably eat, you know, like a chicken leg. And make some really good like roasted potatoes. We're having just like a cozy wintry meal. Because we're in Surrey, there's just going to be like a lot of beers, like a lot of like good beers. The adults are having Guinness. I think that Olivia is having, I feel like she just wants to have hot chocolate the whole time. Maybe we'll give her like an apple juice to start off. I could see her with like a cold apple juice, so it kind of fits like the amber colored theme. And then all the adults are going to have brandy at the end, and Olivia's going to have some hot chocolate. I could see the night unfolds. I could see like a lot of like colorful, like if I had to use a color palette, it would be the color of Iris's scarf that she's wearing when she's like sobbing. So a lot of like pinks and blues, and making it kind of like a colorful holiday, not just the classic like there will be some dark greens in there, but making it like with, I think that Olivia and Sophie decide, since it's her first big dinner party, that she's going to like decorate it. So I'm picturing like stars hanging down and like dried oranges. I think this is a British thing where they have like, they make like little crowns that they wear around their holidays. I don't know if that's New Year's or Christmas Eve. I'll have to fact check. But I could see this like being a pretty fun party. I think it's a good time. I think that Catherine Hahn is like, I'm tired and I'm gonna go up to the one bed upstairs since it's a revolving door up there anyway.
Yeah,
anything goes. I think that Jasper is on his BlackBerry the whole time trying to win Iris back and like sending her dirty photos or something. I think that Olivia is like, feels really cool that she's hanging out with the adults. And I think that Ethan, can't remember if there's a piano in that house, but if there is, he's definitely tickling some keys after a couple beers.
Perfect. So perfect.
All right. For you, we're gonna keep it in the UK since this is we both agreed we would be Angelino's as our main residence. So we're visiting these places that we're going to set these dinner parties. So I'm going to give you the Mill House.
Okay.
Graham's house. I'm giving you a treat since you love it so much. I'm going to give you the coworker that Iris works with, the chain smoker.
Okay. The exposition coworker.
The exposition coworker. Arthur. Maggie.
Okay.
And Maggie is if we had to rewind and do a cheater table, it would be Maggie, Ethan, Jasper, and Olivia.
Yes.
That would be the true cheater table. Anyway, and if I had to retract, sorry, I think that Maggie would like bring the guys she was sleeping with, and they would like go upstairs and be going at it.
The guy in front of Blockbuster.
Yes.
Okay.
The unnamed. So sorry, back to your table. So we're gonna have the exposition chain smoking coworker.
Okay.
Arthur, Maggie, and Sophie. I'm giving you
Sophie. Okay.
Because Sophie's very mature.
She is. She can hang.
I could see her and Arthur like having a great chat. He would like cast her in a movie.
Okay. Big female presence here, plus Arthur. maybe he wouldn't say this to Sophie, but to the other two, they're not leading ladies. They're the they're the friends in the story. We have access to Graham's kitchen. I think I'm gonna lean more Palumbo family Christmas and make a white wine clam sauce served over. Linguine is usually what we would make with it. So I'm gonna make that in the traditional way, but also include a lot of extra parsley. And then also I'll leave this separately because Sophie probably wouldn't enjoy it, but some like red pepper flakes for those who want to make it spicy. I could see Maggie and the coworker wanting to add a little spice, and Arthur would pass on it because he seems like he would want more blander foods, especially at his age. I would also have a baguette that would get warmed up in the oven, slice like multiple, just like, even though there are only 4 of them, like 3 giant baskets of like cut up baguette and butter that has been like softened to like the perfect room temperature. And I think that Sophie would try to be adult and try the linguine and the clam sauce, but she wouldn't really like it. So she would just end up eating like a lot of bread and butter. And I think I would also serve, this is probably on my mind because Lisa said that she was going to bring this to Thanksgiving dinner, but like a spinach salad with like maybe candied pecans and like a blue cheese, even though I don't like blue cheese, but I feel like it goes well with this, like a salad, like a harvest style salad, and maybe even throw in some, not sweet potato. What would go in a,
like yams or like a
yeah,
squash?
like I'm picturing like cubed. What go in the grocery salad? Is there a
Like cubed squash.
cube squash? Okay,
I'm actually making that tonight.
okay.
Or tomorrow. Yeah.
Throw some of that in, and have a nice vinaigrette over it. And I'll serve white wine with this meal since we're having a, like a fish-based dish, also cooked in white wine. And for dessert, for Arthur and for me, since these are my favorite, I'm going to make a bunch of black and white cookies.
Ooh. Oh my God. Sounds so good.
Little
I can
Hanukkah
also
touch.
see like there being leftover mac and cheese in the fridge, and they're like, whip that up too.
They're like, we found this. We could use some more
Wow.
pasta.
I would go to either of these parties.
Same.
I think I'd pick your party though. More room to roam around.
Yeah, but yours feels so like hearty
Cozy.
and warm, and I'd be excited
Seems a little
when.
dirty though. There's like a lot of sleazy people there.
That's
but it's
true.
okay.
That's true. I mean, both crowds are a little questionable, but
Yeah, this is true.
next week we're going to be releasing an episode with a first-time film to table guest. Highly sought after, took about 2 years of convincing, but I think that we finally picked a film that this person thought was worth having a discussion about. So next week we will be joined by Jimmy, my husband, and we're going to be talking about the somewhat controversial, which I'll already tease is the thing that I hate about this movie, that people have made this controversy like way more overblown than it needed to be. We'll be discussing the film Die Hard.
Very similar movie to The Holiday, obviously. I mean, they're almost
Same
the
genre,
so,
yeah.
Same genre.
Yep.
I'm looking forward mostly to having Jimmy on, but this is gonna be a fiery discussion.
It's going to be a bloody holiday.
It's gonna be a bloody. It's really leaning into our bloody holiday.
Yes,
theme, so.
and the return of Christmas star Alan Rickman.
Oh, just been waiting. My palms have been sweating like your gloves on your hands, waiting for this moment. So make sure you tune in.